Well, Jim Ross has found himself on a little bit of a switch up on the commentary team. He talked about it a little bit on his podcast this week. We saw when I was in Detroit for Rampage, for Dynamite and Rampage. Taz was on commentary for Dynamite. JR came out for the main event. Then he stuck around to do Rampage. And apparently it's been announced now that JR is officially switching over to Rampage full-time. And as their commentator, and Taz is going to be on the Dynamite team. And this is a Dynamite move, pun intended. But JR gets into it. We'll talk a little bit more about it on the back end. But first, listen to this clip. JR kind of addresses, I think this was before the Rampage move was addressed, but JR does talk about it on his podcast coming out for just the main event and what his thoughts were on that and how Tony Khan uses him. Check out this clip.
Tony Khan brought me out to do the main events at the end of the show. I think I did like an hour and a half or something. And that was different for me. It's just starting. I was coming in long relief as a baseball player, so to speak. And I did the same thing on Raw then this week, or last week. So I don't know if that's just a Tony thing or that's what how he's going to use me. I don't know. Doesn't matter. So happy for AEW. I'm glad I'm working there. I appreciate Tony Khan's confidence in me, but
yeah, Jim Ross seems fine with however Tony decides he wants to play him, and it sounds like he wants to play him on Rampage. I don't know how that'll work on pay-per-views or even on Dynamite, if he will still come out and do the main events for Dynamite. I like the idea that seems to be going over well on the internet, the idea of JR coming out for the main event. This kind of reminds me a little bit of, well, first remember he did it. He has done that at a couple WrestleManias, so there's precedent there just for Jim Ross. But also it reminds me a little bit of like, remember when Bruce Buffer used to come out, or was it Michael Buffer? I don't remember. There's the two of them. But the one that would come out on Nitro for the main event, just the announcer to do like the mega fucking super announcements, and I like the idea of the main event having a main event something or other. It could be a main event ring announcer, a main event referee, a main event commentary team, something that like an extra, it's time for the main event and then fireworks go off, something to like, you're in the main event, motherfucker. This is extra special, and we're doing this extra special thing. So I actually like JR on commentary for the main event, but him also on Rampage, this is a great move because Taz is better than JR. JR is great. I love Jim Ross. I respect Jim Ross. I respect the man. But he's a grumpy old fucker, and he's stubborn, and he doesn't like the new, on this episode, actually, he was talking with Eric Bischoff. Eric Bischoff was the guest host, which go out of your way to listen to this one. They were talking about Hulk Hogan in the WWE and, from JR's perspective as like talent relations and that kind of stuff. So it's very interesting. Plus, just that Eric Bischoff is the host. He's the Conrad. He's the whatever the other guy's name is that always fills in and does the grilling JR. Is it Paul Bromwell? Or does he do a different one? I don't fucking know. It doesn't matter. But it was fun. It was cool to listen to. JR seems to be cool with whatever, but is he cool with whatever? Look, he's too stubborn. He doesn't like where I was going with that. He was talking with Bischoff about like something they're discussing how you change with the business or whatever, and he says that he's not, he doesn't, judge the way the business changes or whatever. And I called bullshit on that. I can't remember his exact wording, but something like he was able to just keep rolling and keep up with the times. And I call bullshit on that because, even Tony Khan came out and said in like a backstage production meeting early on in AEW that Jim Ross was very critical of Orange Cassidy, very outspoken and going, what the fuck are we doing with this guy? It's a joke. Coley Cornette says little dog pockets, So JR has a tendency, and you know what? He's entitled to his opinion. But he not only signed a contract, he re-signed a contract. So he's like, I still want to work here, you know? It wasn't like, this isn't for me, you know, I'm just going to do my bit and then get the fuck out. He's still, you know, he re-signed a contract. So he wants to be there, but he doesn't like any of the wrestling. He likes like I'm sure he likes a Bryan Danielson match or a Punk match or an FTR match. But when you put like goofy shit like Danhausen or Orange Cassidy in front of him, or you know, Tope Suicida flippy floppies, Jim Ross is gonna have a goddamn fucking aneurysm out there, and he can't help, you know, but put his. He can feel any way he wants about the product, but when you're a commentator, it's your fucking job to put over the wrestling product. Okay? He's not there to talk on screen to be critical of the guys. Well, why don't you stop fooling around and start worrying about winning the damn match? He's always got these little snide remarks about like the Tope Suicidas and fucking any kind of flippy floppy stuff, or like, or he'll you know, like an Orange Cassidy, slightly unorthodox, folks, but it's you know, like he's gotta draw attention to what he perceives to be shortcomings, and sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. But it's not his job to call shit out on live TV. He can do that backstage, and he's a valuable person to have around to do that. I would want him in all my production meetings, and I would want him to have a relationship with the talent where he can openly give them feedback on their match and on their presentation. But on commentary, he needs to cover that shit up, and he needs to put over the fucking talent. Now, I don't know if it's half that and the other half he's just getting old and tired and cranky and can't sit out there for 2 hours, 4 hours, 3 hours. So obviously this change was made for a reason, and I do think, at least if it was me, I would have checked Jim Ross right away. You know, in the most respectful way. Jim, you're burying the fucking talent on TV. Stop it. You know, say all that shit backstage. Tell them. It's important that they know, whether they listen to you or not, whether I listen to you or not. Tony Khan, you know what I mean? Like, I want, you know, I've said that with Jim Cornette too. I would love to have Jim Cornette on my booking team. Whether I listen to anything that he said ever or not, no matter how much he hated what I wanted to do, because I would keep an Orange Cassidy on roster. I'd keep a Danhausen on roster. So already he's not going to like that shit. But I want his opinion. And I want Jim Ross's opinion. And I like that. But I don't want it on fucking live TV when everybody listening at home could go, yeah. You know, even Jim Cornette will mention that on his podcast. You know, he'll get a kick out of JR, like, you know, like if there's a match that's... you know, weird or whatever, he'll say, "Oh, that's ugly, a little bit of bowling shoe ugly," or you know, that's he's a unique character, you know, and that's his subtle way of being like, I don't get this fucking weirdo, and I don't endorse it, but whatever, I'm being paid to be here. So it's a good move, and Taz is great. Taz, I didn't like Taz as much in WWE. But I did start to appreciate him more when he was in TNA, and now in AEW, like especially with Excalibur, he makes they make a great pairing. Him and Excalibur could probably do it alone. Shivani's fine on commentary. I like Shivani. He doesn't do any good commentary, but he's a lovable personality, and I just want him there to go, "Oh my God, oh my." That's it. That's all I need out of him. But he could also just be the Mean Gene Okerlund. I think that's also a fan. I mean, that is his role in AEW, but he's also at the commentary table. You know, I think moving that to Taz and Excalibur with Tony Schiavone as your Mean Gene, and use him as a Mean Gene several times on the show. Do at least 2 or 3 interviews per show live in the arena. Well, you know, maybe even backstage, but live in the arena, on the stage, something like that, in the ring with Tony Schiavone. It's a good place for him. And Rampage is a good place for JR. Less time on the mic and, you know, less seen by people. Maybe he'll stop burying the talent a little bit. Who knows? I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if JR has anything else to say about this. He seemed cool with whatever Tony wants to do with him. But we also know JR is very opinionated, and he had said that before he was moved to Rampage off of Dynamite. Which, by the way, his cognitive function, I think, might be in question a little bit, because he continually messes up people's names, and even during this podcast, which is easy to do. You know, you get so used to saying Cesaro. See, I'm messing up my words now. Jesus, fuck. Karma. Instant karma. You know, but we're so used to saying Cesaro that we're going to slip up and say Cesaro. It's just going to happen. But, you know, even on this podcast, he's... JR said Tony brought me out to do the main event of Raw. Remember last week on Raw where they had the blood and guts match in Detroit? Remember? That was Raw. I love good old JR. I'm just saying, you know, good move. Anyway, enough of this. I've talked it to death. Let's go ahead and move on to the next. Motherfucker.
Let me tell you something, brother. You can check out full episodes each and every Sunday right here on this channel, dude. Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to take your vitamins and say your prayers, brother.